How different do we expect the Bucks defense to be? And just how interesting is the back of the roster battle? We get into it on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis and Frank Madden. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. On yesterday's show, Camille and I recapped Media Day. And just maybe not bizarre, but certainly a different tone to Media Day yesterday than in any recent year here. So we figured we'd get Frank's thoughts on it as well. There were some things worth talking about other than what Giannis had to say. So we'll get to that in a second here. But I guess, Frank, since it is a Bucks podcast and Giannis drives everything here, what did you make of Giannis's comments on, I suppose, two of them? The implication it's not the first time he, however it was worded, considered exploring other options, and the outright I don't remember that conversation or meeting taking place with Wes Edens.
The first thing I thought of was, what was it? Was it 2016 maybe, when Greg Monroe came out after Jason Kidd had pretty much said that he was coming off the bench, and Greg Monroe was out. Was it our friend Eric Name who asked Greg Monroe out about it? Yeah. And Greg Monroe was like, "News to me." I don't know. I don't know if he said that. Was that what he said? But something to that effect. So obviously a much more higher stakes version of that, given it's Giannis. But it was interesting when Wes Edens said that, like, oh, they had their conversation, because, you know, people may remember, right? Like, there was the reported thing early in the summer was, oh, you know, there's going to be the big meeting, right? Where presumably John Horst, ownership, whomever, is going to have to explain the plan to Giannis, right? And Giannis is going to be in there with, you know, a clipboard and taking notes, and, you know, his multi-year cap sheet, studying all the scenarios, and, you know, listening to the grand plan be unveiled for him. And then like nothing ever seemed to happen. And I actually even like messaged Eric. I was like, was there ever actually any like follow through on like whether the so-called meeting ever happened? And, you know, Eric was like, yeah, there was nothing, you know, certainly nothing reported, right? And so it felt like, oh, that's like a new bit of information if supposedly some conversation happened. The way Wes Edens framed it, like, was, I think if I was to guess, right, and at this point we are guessing what sort of what Giannis's sort of real thoughts were on it, but it felt like, you know, Wes was making it sound as though like, oh, we were all on the same page from early in the summer, and, you know, all this noise was, you know, much ado about
laughed
nothing.
at all the reporting.
Yeah,
we knew back in June.
Right. And there's a couple things we know about Giannis, right? Giannis is, first off, he's pretty private about conversations that you know, sort of this ilk. I mean, in the same Media Day Zoom that he did, he alluded to the Dame relationship when asked about that, and basically said, like, I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not going to publicly talk about what Dame and I discussed, but, you know, said, hey, you know, it's bigger than basketball, etc. And I don't think Giannis has ever been somebody that wants other people speaking for him, let alone, you know, the owner of his team that, again, they're on the same team, literally, but there is always like that underlying sort of, you know, tension between a superstar and his ownership, who, you know, owes him money and has to offer him contracts and has to build a team around him. So, it certainly Giannis's reaction made it seem like Wes was talking out of school a little bit, or in a way that Giannis would not have wanted him to potentially. And, obviously the content of what Giannis said suggested that it was not necessarily agreed to in the way that Wes suggested it. So yeah, it's not a good look, especially for Wes Edens, but who at this point, has been around Giannis for quite a long time, right? Like literally since when Giannis was, a 20-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid. So that seemed like a bit of a miscalculation. And so who knows exactly what was going on sort of behind that. But I mean, look, Justin, you've said it like a million times this pod. We've all discussed it. Like we have, on the one hand, I think we have for the last couple months been very confident that Giannis is going to be a Buck this year. My view kind of towards the end of summer was like, this is just a matter of like whether or not they signed Thanasis, and that's probably all that Giannis is like leveraging at this point. Maybe that might have been honestly what Giannis was looking for all summer.
You never know.
That's the only thing that really was sort of holding up, Giannis supposedly contemplating the universe or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely got things off to an awkward note. But yeah, so I mean, we'll see if we get any additional clarity on what may or may not have been discussed and when, and whether it was, a phone call or a meeting or something, or something that didn't really happen at all. I don't know. But it was not obviously an ideal, way to kind of start things. But you've said it, as I was about to say, right? We have not been beating the drum as much as we thought Giannis was going to come back. We have not been saying that like Shams is completely making this up to troll Bucks fans, and there's no way this is coming from anything, right? If Shams is reporting something, then somebody wants something out there. And again, like at times, reporters will report things that is maybe coming from parties that have a vested interest in, like from other teams or whatever it might be. But this could have been coming from Giannis's own camp for reasons that they had, right, to basically keep the Bucks on their toes, leverage, to put pressure to get the Thanasis back. I mean, who knows, right? Like we can sort of speculate who might have said what and who Shams is talking to. But I also, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, like I think the possibility of Giannis leaving has always been more real than certainly some parts of the fan base would want to admit. Like the sort of Giannis would never leave and he's pledged his life here and he's going to retire in Milwaukee 100% certainty. Like I think we all would agree, like that is not what we believe. And based on the history of what we've heard, like I think there is at least a theoretical openness to consider leaving. How close he came, who knows? Clearly not. Doesn't seem like he came that close this summer, even if there may have been some conversations or thoughts about it. But yeah, so I think it's sort of something in between. I don't think this is really like worthy of Shams taking a victory lap either, because it's like he didn't ask for it. Like the big buildup of Shams, like this is gonna be the craziest summer ever, and
I mean Giannis technically got him on a technicality too with the I said I've considered this before, and Shams' reporting was for the first time.
That was the part of it that always got to me, of like for the first time in his career, and I was like, is it though? Like, is it really the first time in his career? And Giannis himself came out there and said, like, this is nothing new. Like, I just want to make sure I continue to compete here.
Yeah. So bottom line, I think it, reinforces the idea that like there is no 100% guarantee that Giannis is just going to sign up to be a Buck forever. It's also not some grand endorsement that Shams was right, because what he was alluding to never happened basically, and didn't ever seem to get that close. And he kind of kept beating the drum long after pretty much everybody else threw in the towel, which obviously, appears to be justified at this point. So I don't know. It's sort of much ado about nothing, but the part that I think I just circle on my calendar now is next summer is the big reckoning to me, and when I haven't been on since, those comments came out from the Greek media thing where he said, that he's always sort of preparing to be traded because you never know. And, you know, some of those things, ironically talking about like, oh, ownership is different, which was kind of interesting because it was like, well, Wes Edens and Jamie Dine have been basically here since you were in your second year.
Fascitelli for
So like other than Haslam, like it's been extremely, the continuity has been very consistent, really, right? So anyway, so that was a bit interesting, but anyway, we'll see. So I think again, hopefully we just get Giannis back in the country, in the state, wherever he is, and he gets to play basketball again very soon, and we can sort of start that. But next summer, he's extension eligible, and if he doesn't sign an extension, then that I think is the big like problem for the Bucks, because then he's in a walk year. And do you just hope that he signs when he could become a free agent, or is he basically like forcing you to consider trading him because of the possibility that you lose him for nothing? And so Bucks have had to face that challenge before, you know, in 2020, even when they offered him an extension and he didn't immediately take it. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I mean, a year from now feels like a lifetime. So, you know, plenty to happen for them.
There's one other thing to add on to that. So we'll wrap up the Giannis's comments and the pending free agency discussion and get Camille's thoughts coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love FanDuel because it gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, even follow the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. And like we've talked about before too, Camille, I know you and I have, I think the three of us have, like, I mean, this is like, it's kind of like the Brett Favre discussion, because we know from here on out, this is what we've signed up for until Giannis starts to show signs of decline. Like, even if he signs an extension every single year, it's going to be like, I don't know, shouldn't you try to push for one more title? Next summer is going to be interesting. And like, I guess in some ways it could be a game of chicken. I mean, you mentioned at the top two, Frank, like, I'm not going to speak for Giannis, and none of us know him well enough to know just exactly what he's thinking. But I do have a hard time seeing Giannis, the guy that we know and everything we know about him and his background, leaving money on the table. That doesn't mean he would not ever leave here and there wouldn't be something else that happened down the road. But I just don't see him making, unless there's another company that's willing to pay him $28 million for, you know, a no-show endorsement deal. I don't know if he's going to leave what he could get from the Bucks versus a new team on the table.
You know, he might not. And I've said it before that part of having a superstar is that you have to continuously deal with all of the trade rumors and all of the noise that comes around just having a desirable player that other teams, of course, would want to add to their roster as well. When you throw in the fact that Giannis himself has made comments in the past, as we've heard, about wanting to compete for championships, and you look at the Milwaukee Bucks and be like, well, hey, y'all lost in the first round in the last 3 years. Of course, there's nuance behind the why they lost, and injury plays a big part of it. But this is a year, I think, Justin, you mentioned it, where you mentioned getting off to a slow start this year might carry a weight on it that we haven't necessarily felt in years past. And after this summer that we just had, where the trade speculation was so ramped up around Giannis and what he wants, because the Bucks were kind of at a crossroads with the Damian Lillard injury, Chris Middleton being gone. It felt like it was just a new era. Like, what does this entail? And can they figure out a way to compete in this new environment? And the part for me that I keep going back to from media day and whatnot, Yeah, all that stuff was weird with the Wes Eden's comments and everything like that. But Giannis mentioned, like, I think we do have a low-key dangerous team over here in Milwaukee. I'm excited to play with these dudes. I think we got some dogs. And hearing what he mentioned during that Greek interview shortly after winning the bronze for the country, he mentioned, like, my favorite type of guys to play with are the dogs. I like two-way guys. That's the kind of guys that I like to watch, my favorite type of players. And I'm not saying the Bucks have assembled a team of the best two-way guys that you'll ever see, but the potential for just two-way play is there with this group. And I think that he's going to give them at least a leeway to see what this looks like with the ball in his hands. And I see pathways forward where this could be a really big Giannis year because of the narrative around the team of it's just Giannis. There's nothing here. Like, if this is the Bucks team, as we've talked about, where they can surprise and make some noise in the East, narrative fits if Giannis continues to play at the level he has and maybe adds in a career high in assists this year with him being point Giannis, what that looks like for him and what it can do for the award races. I think it can be big for him, but ultimately I'm just at a point where after this summer, I'm so tired of having to even think about all the trade stuff, all the Giannis stuff. Like, I'm just ready for him to be with the team in training camp over COVID, ready to hoop, so that we can continue to talk about Bucks basketball. Because as I've said before, enjoy what you're watching when you get to watch it. Like, we didn't realize the last Chris Middleton game was going to be the last Chris Middleton game until we actually realized, oh, he's traded, he's gone. Like, just enjoy the basketball, enjoy the eras when Giannis does hit the court for the Bucks this season. Enjoy it. We don't know what the future brings, but anytime that man is in the Bucks jersey hooping for us, like, enjoy it.
I mean, Camille, Chris Middleton era restarts in February 2026, right?
Oh, yeah, when the buyout happens. And
hashtag buyout season. Don't worry about it. Chris Middleton era, we're going to get it rip-roaring. It'll be all back, all good. But yeah, I mean, it's something, I mean, we talk about, I know Camille, because we're post-game partners, while Justin's, doing the official broadcast thing.
Right. I've lied to you guys. I'm not actually doing it.
He's really at home the whole time. We're just doing it late.
But we have that so often, like where it's a Tuesday in January against the Raptors, and Giannis does some incredible stuff, and we say, like, this is why we podcast every game, right? Every day, why we talk about these games that the media and maybe Adam Silver would say, like, don't really matter that much. But as fans, the chance to watch Giannis just night in and night out is, again, like, we all have followed this team for so long, and like me, 10-year-old me, 20-year-old me, I'm trying to think, 30-year-old me, like, I dreamed of having a guy like this to root for night in and night out, let alone win a championship with. So yeah, I mean, at this point, like, I've sort of made peace with the noise, and as you said, Justin, like, it's going to be there until Giannis retires or leaves, and hopefully it's the former, not the latter. But yeah, it's just time to you just got to focus on enjoying it and the simple pleasures, especially in a season where the likelihood of a long extended playoff run, like, isn't great, like, let's be honest, right? So hopefully things break better for them this year than previously. And I'll bring this up. I'm zagging a little bit. I know we had it sort of on the docket, but when we're talking about two-way guys, Justin, you brought this up, so I'm going to blame you for this little zag. But it was interesting, the comments Giannis made about, or more of the doc comments about, like, oh, we can't play this way and all that. And as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, who and what is he talking about? You guys talked a lot about, like, the Myles Turner piece. Obviously, like, there's the Brook Lopez, like, especially the defensive piece. But it seemed like there were two obvious people that could be directed at. One, like Brook, because he's slower and defensively kind of forces you to play a certain way. And two, like Damian Lillard, because Damian Lillard, very much the least two-way of pretty much everybody on the Bucks last year / the last 5 years, I guess. So it was a bit interesting, the implications of what Doc was saying. And it's also a little bit like, all right, be careful, because not that Doc was saying, like, oh, we're going to be better off without Damian Lillard. They obviously would have been without him, regardless of whether or not they waived and stretched him. But, I think this is like what we're all very curiously watching, which is, does taking out a, high leverage, shot making, creative point guard who brought a lot of compromises defensively, like what is the trade-off of doing that? And can you actually, maybe not get better, but can you essentially mitigate the loss of the offense by bringing, by being able to do more stuff defensively, play different ways defensively, which obviously that 8-game win streak at the end of the year sort of potentially previewed. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Competition too.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's, I think the probably what most of us are, I guess, most curious about probably this season, other than obviously watching Giannis as always, but just sort of seeing that thing, because again, like, when I think about the Bucks broadly this year, there's these two big things that I'm just sort of trading off. One is the obvious, like you had a 48-win team and you lost Damian freaking Lillard. Mm-hmm. You're going to be worse. Like there's no way you're going to be better. Right. You had the guys that are replacing him already on the roster, and you did some good stuff at the end of the year, but like, not exactly like, superstars in waiting that you can just plug and replace him with. But the other side is Damian Lillard was a negative player last year by plus minus, which isn't the be all end all. Yeah. But you were better without him on the floor last year, perhaps strangely. And yeah, he does bring obviously compromises on especially the defensive end. And it does force you to play offensively a certain way. You're not flying up and down the court offensively because of the way he likes to play, and also because defensively you're not forcing as many turnovers, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, that's, I think just the subtext of that is really interesting. Again, now Doc sort of saying it out loud is also interesting, because now it's like, all right, Doc, you guys better be better defensively, because you just said you couldn't play the way you wanted to play and you can't win this way. All right, go show us. So yeah, those are, I think, a couple of the things that I thought were most interesting on media day. And again, sort of, I think, underscored what we're all looking to see here come regular season.
Yeah, there's one other interesting thing from how Doc framed that. So I do want to pick things up with that and the back of the roster. I think I don't know about you, Frank, but I think Camille and I have kind of waffled back and forth throughout the course of the summer of who's going to make the club and who isn't. And I've swung back around once again. So where do we currently stand with that? We'll get into that discussion next. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. And the swivel screen, it's a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. And by the way, just to wrap this one up, I don't know if it was our guy, Eric. I think it was, but Greg Monroe's quote was, "That's news to me." When,
nailed it.
Yeah. What's perhaps, well, never mind. People can search and find the tweet itself and who tweeted it, everybody's favorite. But yes, that's news to me, is what Greg Monroe said moments after.
Gary, a Gary flashback. Oh,
well,
man.
I was going to try to avoid the name, Frank.
Gary Harris. Maybe I'm talking about Gary Harris or Gary Trent Jr.
49 likes. Like, I mean, if that happens today, that's hundreds. That's blowing up. Like, wow. But here we are. Doc's comments about, so you mentioned who it may have been pointed to, but just the, like, we played on our heels too much. And like, I get that. And I can see some of the logic there. I don't know if it was all of it, but I like the way Doc Rivers described how, and I forget what the exact quote was, but his conversations with John, how he had Doc had said, like, we can't do it with this roster. We have to dramatically change things. I don't want to open this can of worms again, but like hearing that and how they constructed the roster, if you're Adrian Griffin, you're almost like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Why couldn't you give me this roster?
I mean, and that was even around the trade deadline with the Chris Middleton trade, where there was a lot of consternation around the fact that it was Chris Middleton being traded. But then people were saying, but also look what Kuz is able to bring to you by being younger and just able to move a little bit more. Now, again,
people as in like two of us and maybe a couple other people, Camille. There's not much outside of that other than this is terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's part of it. Like I thought about Chris prior to trade deadline, I thought about Brooke, I thought about Dame, and just that style of play of. I mean, even when Chris was healthy, he still played at a slower pace. Like he was going to play at his pace that he wanted to play in. So, I mean, I get it. I get the comments that they're making, but to your point about like, well, we have to see something now. We are, because even hearing like Bobby Portis talk about the team and just like how what's up to him is like, dang, we are young, like we are athletic, like we are moving right now. So I hope that we see it in practice and that it actually is able to be executed the way that the scheme is drawn up.
Just well, and Frank, I mean, isn't the big thing too, like you mentioned, the defense, like isn't the hope, don't you just have to, our defense has to create the offense, and like we have not been able to take enough advantage of arguably, and it's not even that much of an argument, the greatest transition player in the league. So that's how we're going to score.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to joke that, they're going to play 48 minutes of 2-3 zone, and Gary Trent and Kevin Porter Jr. are going to average 4 steals a game. And yeah, that's how we're going to do this. Shout out to that Minnesota game.
Right.
But that got it, the highlight of the season, I think I'd say.
One out of, yeah. And it came late too, late in the season.
It was the highlight of the season, Camille. The way everything was shaping up.
The NBA Cup don't ring for you?
Oh yeah, NBA Cup. NBA
that
Cup,
was fun
NBA
in
Cup.
real time. Right. It was fun.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be the NBA Cup. You got hardware. I am #respect the cup. Banners fly forever. So there's no banner for the 24-point comeback or whatever it was against the Wolves. I was also going to nominate the Giannis 59 point.
I mean, give it time, Frank.
To go.
It's not too late to get the Minnesota 24-point comeback banner up.
Put it on the NBA Cup banner.
If we
have
enough
room.
If we have anybody with a sewing machine and you've got some extra cloth, head on down to Michael's maybe.
Just get a cricket machine and beat the Timberwolves.
Exactly. Giannis 59-point game against the Pistons was the only other one that like immediately sprang to mind. That was awesome. The 2 missed free throws after the non-Giannis foul at the buzzer. That was justice served right there. But yeah, I mean, they were. I was looking at it again. I think they were slightly above average defensively by like the NBA.com metrics.
Yeah.
I think they were like 16th by cleaning the glass. So a bit of a spread. I mean, literally from below average to above average, depending on the source you look at. So yeah, I mean, I think this is like the question, like what is the defensive ceiling of this team? Mm-hmm. And I think the Myles Turner of it all, you guys alluded to yesterday. I mean, he is more versatile. I don't know that I'd look at Myles Turner and say like, oh, he's like a super versatile defensive player, but he is certainly more versatile than Brooke, while allowing you to also do the stuff that you did with Brooke and that, worked pretty well, and lets, kind of Giannis be a roamer and all that. So, yeah, I mean, the question now to Greg Buckner is like, okay, you're not weighed down by having to play this horrible style because of presumably Brooke and Damian Lillard. Now go make it happen. Go make, a top 10 defense happen, because any version of this team approaching, the high 40s in terms of wins, which, I think probably a lot of Bucks fans are still hoping could be possible. I'm not that high on them, but But I think if for that to potentially happen, I do think, you obviously need like the high end of what they can be defensively. And I think that is, top 10 defense and probably, average-ish offense probably is like the combination that could get you to high 40 wins. So it should be interesting. Yeah, lots of zone defense and probably Myles Turner doing more than just playing drop. And then I don't know, we'll see kind of what other wrinkles they might throw defensively. But I mean, Justin, you alluded to it. I think especially when, you don't have just a killer half court offense, an obvious way to try to do that. Like, how do you basically manufacture more points? I think you try to push the pace more, which, if you can force turnovers, that's obviously easier. And then the other one, which, we bemoaned it a lot last year. Did they talk about offensive rebounding at all? I don't recall anybody talking about that.
There was just a little comment about Myles Turner and offensive rebounding, which I found kind of interesting, but it was, I can't remember. I think it might've been Doc or John Horst, and they were talking about what they need of Myles, and we just need him to do more. Like, we're going to ask him just to do more. They're like, he's a good shot. I think it was Doc, because he was like, he's a good shot blocker, which might translate to some offensive rebounds too. And I heard him say it, and I was like, since when is it? Because you see him jump and you're just like, okay, yeah, you can probably jump for some offensive boards too. But like, that was the only offensive boards mentioned. But I think to your point about the defense too, I wonder if we see them just kind of take more risks, like the guards. Like, we know Kevin Porter Jr. likes to gamble. We know Gary Trent likes to gamble a bit. I wonder if they're going to be more empowered to do that with this defense, where they're like, hey, trust what you got behind you now. I know Gary mentioned it when he got up there of like, I feel a little bit better when you have guys behind you, can have your back if you do gamble. But I wonder if that's something the Bucks emphasize in addition to the emphasis on getting up more 3-point shots. Because one thing we've said in games when like one of the stars was hurt was like, well, should see that 3-point volume increase now, because you got to find a way to generate offense. Even the Chicago Bulls last year, which weren't a great offense, but they were getting some threes up to try to get that offense going. And I think for the Bucks too, getting those threes up, which we heard is a point of emphasis, which we've been saying all summer should be a point of emphasis in large part too, because of the guys they have shooting the ball with the talent they have. But I think that defense and then just the sheer volume of threes is going to be something that can really help the Bucks this season.
So if the defense is, I guess, where it was last year, so I think it got worse actually at the back of the year, like after January 1st.
Yeah. Well, also when Dame was out, they weren't great defensively. They just scored a ton, which is kind of weird, right? Because I thought we all thought, oh, now that Dame's out, they won't score as much, but they'll be great defensively. No, the opposite. I mean, it's just weird sometimes how that stuff works.
Yeah, and I mean, even their pace, I think Camille and I talked about it before too. Like you're not just gonna totally reinvent your offense. Like, okay, overnight we're gonna be different, but I still expected it to at least pick up, and it didn't in those games. So if it's like around there and it's where it was last year, maybe slightly better. I mean, what's the line of demarcation where you look at their defense and say, if it's there, they're in trouble because of the questions that we've raised with the offense, and not only who's going to be the second consistent scorer, but like, how are they going to play offensively?
I feel like if they're middle of the pack or worse defensively, it's probably going to be a problem for the team.
I think if they're middle of the pack, it is going to be a long year.
Yeah, like this is a team that I think is going to have to be a top 10 defense for them to try to achieve what we're thinking they could, which is, try to be a team that can get home court in East. I've been saying between 4 and 6 in the East, I think is where they'll place, which similar to last year, until that streak there at the end where they kind of started getting momentum. But if that defense isn't top 10, I think that line is looking at that, they're like, hey, if they're 15, unless the offense surprises and they're like a top 5 offense out, and you're just like, oh shoot, okay, well they're carrying this way, which I don't see that actually happening. But I think if they're middle of the pack defensively, it's going to be it's a problem.
I mean, I think I've said this on the pod at some point. Like when I think about like my win expectation, I kind of always, like the number 43. I'm just sort of that's where my head is at. I mean, which you basically you're a little over 500 team. As you were talking there, Camille, I like if they're a dead average defense, I think that's probably like they're going to be a team that just is like trying to be a 500 team probably. And so it's getting, some distance between themselves and sort of the average defense is what has to happen to, to meaningfully exceed kind of being a 500 team. And this is, the reason why, and sometimes and it's weird because like I've obviously been largely supportive of the moves that they've made, right? They haven't had flexibility to do whatever they want this summer. And, they didn't have the assets obviously to make big swings in terms of trades. But I like the guys that they brought back. Obviously Turner's a great fit for, considering what their lack of flexibility entailed. So I kind of like what they did, but it's interesting, like with Doc, like I'm not nearly as like negative on Doc as a lot of people. I mean, there's obviously a lot of like very vocal detractors around Doc, but I mean, I will say honestly, like a big reason why
as a coach, you're saying, I don't think I heard that. Okay.
As a yeah, we don't have I haven't seen the Fire Doc avatars, but I feel like
I think I
yeah.
I think they're out there.
But like the reality is, like, I mean, look at the talent they had the last 2 years with him.
Yeah.
And the results, like, again, like it's the phrase I always said always last year. I never felt like that team was greater than the sum of their parts. It just always felt like they were just sort of like doing barely what, at least you would expect from their talent level. And now obviously they have less top end talent. They might be deeper. And they obviously have, I'd say, more flexibility and two-way capability. But I don't know. I need Doc to sort of prove that like he can do kind of what he did like in that like fun Clipper year where, they had kind of, I think it was the year when they sort of had like gotten rid of all the Lob City stars and, they were like, it was like Lou Williams in a cloud of dust and, they were frisky and fun and punched above their weight. And that's, I think, what they have to, that's what he's got to figure out this year is like, how does he get this group to kind of punch above their weight and gel and play defense in particular in a way that, allows them to kind of be more than the sum of their parts. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not like I would never say I'm like a Doc Rivers hater, but I am skeptical that he can, maximize, an NBA roster in the year 2025, just based on what we saw the last 2 years. So again, that's the gauntlet, Doc. That's your challenge. And also to the coaching staff, honestly, too. I mean, it's not like Doc has like a bunch of young assistant coaches. Like he's got as much kind of veteran coaching support as anybody could want. So you guys have seen it all. You got a bunch of guys that won championships on that bench. Figure it out, shape this team, mold this team. There's a ton of young guys, impressionable guys that I think you can get to play the way you want, but you got to have the game plans and the adjustments and all that fun stuff that, fans like to complain about with coaches to realize it. So I don't know. Hey, hope springs eternal, but I'm a bit in a kind of a show me sort of mindset right now when it comes to that.
The Clippers game from 2 years ago too is the one that comes to mind for me because like that season that you referenced, Frank, but it's like we've seen individual games. I mean the Timberwolves game too, where Doc is seemingly at his best when he's undermanned and he can get those guys to buy in. Cause that Clippers one, I think it was basically just Dame against the Clippers where Giannis was out, Chris was out. It was in the Danilo Gallinari and Jay Crowder era too. So like those were the guys you were trotting out there and it was a full strength Clippers team and the Bucks beat them at home late in the season. And it was it
was a comeback, wasn't it? There was a big comeback, right?
I think it was, didn't Pat Beverly play a big role in the comeback too?
I'm pretty sure he did.
I was going to say, I thought I remember I'm trying to remember who it was. I thought there were like some surprising contributors, let's say, in terms of shot making in that game. I'm trying to remember the exact.
Let's just pull it up.
Who exactly it was. There was somebody who had a big shooting game I thought it might have been someone other than Pat Bev. Somebody like I thought it was somebody who was kind of like maligned, but obviously Kuz was not on the team at the time. KPJ obviously was in Greece or whatever at the time.
Pat Beverly hit 3 threes, which in itself is remarkable. Dame had 41 points. Bobby had 28 off the bench. But
Bobby had 28.
Yeah. I mean, your starters in that game were Dame, Pat Beverly, Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, and Brooke Lopez. And your bench was Bobby, Pat Connaughton, Danilo Gallinari, and AJ Green.
Jay Crowder out of the league. Pat Bev out of the league. Who was the small forward?
Chris was out that game too. So
Malik Beasley was the small forward.
Malik Beasley also out of the league. I feel kind of bad for Bees, but pay your barber, Bees. Pay your dentist. Pay your barber. Come on. You got it.
So the last thing here, has your thought process changed? Well, I guess I don't even remember last we spoke where you felt. And the last time we did talk about this, was Thanasis on the team when we were talking about who is going to make up the back of the roster for the Bucks? Because we had the discussion over one and who's the one guy you're going to waive, but now it's in theory 4 or 5 guys for 2 spots.
Didn't I come on and do my victory lap for my
because it was Labor Day week.
I think I came on because it was also, we talked about Eurobasket. And this is before the semis, I think. And I think we talked about, basically I was sort of making the case like why, and I posed to you guys, right, the question of, out of Livingston, Tyler Smith, and Ajax, like, even then we were all sort of saying, well, Ajax is guaranteed his move back, so he's got the target on his back. But would you actually waive this guy, given that there's not really like a cap? You save some money if you waive him rather than the other guys, but like there's no second apron or tax sort of considerations to worry about. And so what would actually be your order of who you'd waive? And I think at the time I had said Tyler Smith, you're number 1 on my waiver wire list. Chris Livingston number 2, and Ajax actually number 3, which was a bit interesting because I've obviously always been pretty skeptical of Ajax as a major minutes guy. But yeah, I mean, bringing Thanasis into the mix obviously like means there's 1 fewer chair available in the game of musical chairs. And certainly, as you guys alluded to, Amir Coffey being one of the guys talking to the media, and the fact that he came here in the first place, although, I mean, look, it was late in the summer, so
it was super late.
It's not like he signed here on the second day of free agency or something. But my inclination would be to think that Amir Coffey is still going to be on this roster come opening night. So I think, again, not necessarily my view. Like if I had to waive 2 guys, I would waive Livingston and Smith, or Smith first, Livingston second, and keep Ajax.
Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah, just because of the kind of proven NBA skill sort of argument that, at least with Ajax, like we've seen him play, that like he is actually a real legit NBA defender. But I think if I'm being like realistic about like what would the Bucks actually do, I think probably the obvious thing is they're gonna waive Ajax, and then I still think Amir Coffey is going to be around. And then I guess the question is, what else do you do beyond that, right? Because you need 1 more roster spot if you're going to keep Coffey. Like at this point, if you're just going to waive Coffey in his non-guaranteed contract, you still need to waive Ajax to basically make the Thanasis spot, which obviously is a very safe bet. So I think Coffey's probably going to be here. And then, Livingston is a small forward-ish, small, like a 3-4. Tyler Smith's a 4, I guess. Although, again, neither of these guys, like nobody has any expectation that they're going to play a minute of real basketball this year. So I don't know that it matters a whole lot who you waive. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, like kind of who they might decide to waive there. Because obviously Livingston, they waived and then re-signed. They already did it once. Now, again,
the old fantasy football move.
And again, like, was the Livingston thing kind of same agent clutch as Gary Trent. Might there have been some understanding there that the Bucks were going to take care of Livingston? But I mean, even if they waived Livingston, he still gets to keep, his $2 million. Yeah. So it's not like Clutch got screwed or something like that. Obviously, they probably would have rather had Livingston get waived earlier so he could, excuse me, so he could maybe go someplace else. But I don't know. So hard to say. Anyway, that's my non-answer, semi-answer, half answer. What are you guys guessing at this point, just given the state of the union?
I've been all over the place throughout the summer. I think the last time I officially said something, I think I said, man, the ones who are guaranteed are on the team and all the other ones are probably going to be cut. And now, especially after hearing how Horst and team are evaluating this training camp, the coffee on the stand things and things of that sort, I think Amir Coffey does make the team. And then the question becomes, okay, now between Ajax and everything else going on, what happens here? So I think Coffey makes the team. I think Andre Jackson Jr. is out. And the other non-camp bodies that might just be, oh no, because Jackson's not guaranteed too, so you need another move to make. Well, it's probably going, and that sucks for Livingston or Smith right there, because it feels like
they got 17 guys.
Yeah, so it's like 2 have to be gone there. So I think it's one of those 2. And I think it might honestly just depend on how bodies are looking in camp there and the count of numbers at the end of the day. But yeah, I think Coffey makes the team, and how they make the room for him could be anybody's guess. I am not sure how they do that.
Come on, Camille, you gotta give an answer.
I would probably go with Smith if I had to pick the one. I think it would be Smith for Coffey. But man, I don't know.
I feel like if this was the final year of Chris Livingston's contract and there wasn't the waive and brought back, I think it would be a foregone conclusion that Ajax is non-guaranteed, and then this guy's lowest, which pains me to say. I taped something with him at Media Day too, and there's somebody that listens to the show that saw him walking into the room that I was in to tape with me and gave me an excited look, wow, no, it's not. I don't think we're there anymore.
Do you think Chris Livingston knows that you're this big proponent of? I
hope so.
His
but he didn't act like it when I recorded with him. So.
I mean, he really should, somebody. This really should work its way back to Chris Livingston in some capacity.
I mean, honestly,
I'm not saying this is the biggest podcast in the world, but it is the biggest Bucks podcast, and how many people are out here caping for Chris Livingston in front of thousands of people on YouTube? Yeah. Come on, somebody give Chris a heads up so he can be appreciative.
Yeah, I mean, Justin. When we had Jordan Wara, his dad and his family would I think they just had Jordan Wara filters, because if you said anything, you were hearing from them and getting retweets. So I need Chris Livingston's circle to do the same. But no, I think it's probably him and Ajax that are, because it just seems like, on the one hand, I think we approached it as well, are we overinflating this because it's a camp deal and it went this long? Clearly the league views Amir Coffey a little bit differently than we do, unless, I don't think he was asked this, unless he just had other opportunities, but his relationship with Doc was nope, I just want to come here in a camp deal. So, I mean, I think just seeing him on the podium and hearing everything else, I think he's clearly going to be on the team. But what if Ajax just goes out and has one hell of a training camp in preseason and then really gives you the although I suppose that's a good problem too, because then hey great, you just inflated your value, but I still have a hard time seeing any team trading for him.
They might not trade for him, but that's the type of problem you would love to have. I would love for it to be man, Andre's making it really hard right now for him to be the presumed person who's going to get cut solely because of how his contract is set up. I would love to hear training camp, Andre Jackson Jr. is doing his thing. When preseason kicks off next week and you start seeing some of these game minutes and these game reps, I would love to see a jump from Andre from what we even saw in summer league, like let's see a jump from that play in this situation here. I would love for that to be the case, but we'll see how it actually shakes out.
So I think I arrived at Livingston as the final odd man out because the way the roster is currently set up, the way that Chris Livingston would carve out a role and find any type of playing time. But like period in the NBA, and certainly with the setup of this team, is basically on the wing and as a three, because you got Bobby, you got Giannis, you got Myles Turner, you got Jericho Sims, you got Kuzma, you can play Taurean Prince as a small ball four. So like that's taken. We need you to be a bigger wing that can defend. And we haven't seen that from him. And we haven't seen what appears to be that ability. You look at him and you think this is the guy that can do it, but we still haven't seen it. And I know summer league is different and the limited playing time he's gotten in garbage time is different, but he's still a little too boxy to kind of take on that role, that I just look at it and say like, well, break in case of emergency, if this is the role that we're going to need for you, can you do it? And I don't know that you have a yes answer there, or even a maybe.
Well, you're never going to break into Chris's circle of known media supporters with that attitude. Well, but like the flip side is like the Tyler Smith. How the hell is Tyler Smith ever going to play for this team?
It's also only been 1 year that you can say, all right, this is the year that we're going to try to see if we can get something here. And then we cut bait. Whereas like it's been 3 years of Chris Livingston that we've seen this.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm just saying, like, just positionally, like Tyler Smith is not a center. He's not a three. He plays this. He's the only position he plays is the position of the best player in franchise history, who at this point is still on the team. And like, what are you worried? Like, what is Tyler Smith going to become that you're going to look back and say, oh man, we could have been planning for the post Giannis era, building around Tyler Smith. That's what Bogle-Ube is for, guys. Come on.
The next.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's just, and that's the kind of thing, like, too, it's like, if anybody's like kind of looking at, Amir Coffey and be like, oh, you're really going to eat a contract for Amir Coffey? It's like, yeah, like eating a big little contract, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Amir Coffey is an NBA player. Like, is he great? No, but he's a small forward, which is a position the Bucks obviously have depth problems at. And nobody who's watched any of these guys, if anybody who's watched these dudes play, would rather play Amir Coffey than Andre Jackson or Chris Livingston or Tyler Smith, right? It's like a no-brainer. So the idea of like Coffey not making the team would have to be reflective of him just like sucking in preseason,
and the shot isn't there,
right? And like those other guys, like at least one or two of those other guys,
look amazing,
looking great, yeah. And I'm sure that I think there's a version of the world where like Andre Jackson, plays out of his mind and does all the stuff they want him to do and doesn't do like the weird, behind the back passes, into the first row with 23 seconds left on shot clock, right? Like he kind of realizes the version of himself that we sort of hoped he was when he was picked high in the second round. Maybe there is that version of him in the preseason, and maybe, Chris Livingston hits a bunch of threes and, D's up and doesn't look as boxy as Justin is accusing him of looking. Known detractor Justin Garcia is proven wrong, and Frank is proven right as a longtime optimist about Chris Livingston. So we'll see. You're selling your stock. I'm buying low on Chris Livingston. Is that what I'm doing? No.
That's what it sounds like, Frank.
It's getting late. It's getting late.
It is getting late.
Stop all over again. Yeah. And I mean, look, we saw some of it in Summer League, right? Granted, nothing that we saw in Summer League was good, but didn't Tyler Smith get some run at the 3 in Summer League? Because from what we've heard, that is also what they're hoping and toying with, of like, well, maybe he can fit here in that role that we just described for Chris Livingston.
No. Spoiler alert. Not gonna happen. I can't even picture him like dribbling the ball, like taking 3 dribbles and making like a basic pass. I don't know. Like there's certain like basic, skills you gotta have to be a small forward. Even, I mean, that's like also why I've been skeptical of Chris Livingston, because it's just like, it's like he had even Summer League when he played well, obviously, like let's give him credit. Like they're just those plays where like, they didn't have a point guard for most of Summer League, right? With injuries. And it's like Chris is having to like handle the ball and like do like half court creation. It's like he tries to like dribble and then make a pass and it's just like badly telegraphed and picked off. And I mean, again, like we sort of take it for granted, like what that like NBA wing sort of can do that stuff and have sort of that sort of decision making and passing ability, like that kind of basic level. And again, like not, you can't just expect all these guys to have that. That's why some of these guys are just dribble handoff, right? Like I can give you a 1 foot handoff, like that is my passing ability. But yes, Chris Livingston looks like Magic Johnson compared to Tyler Smith, at least from what we've seen. Maybe it's in there, Tyler, but we haven't seen it.
I think we're at the end of the show when we're getting Magic Johnson.
Yeah, I called Chris Livingston. This turned into the Chris Livingston Magic Johnson comp tour.
That was when I was like, wait a second, wait, what are we doing here now?
Yeah,
so Tyler Smith, Isaiah Thomas, then in these scenarios.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna be getting a bunch of follows from like Chris Livingston's cousins. They're gonna clip the end of this podcast.
T Livingston 27.
Hashtag Team Livingston over here.
I'm gonna get a lot of Tyler Smith accounts that are gonna start following me now. So I've officially jumped teams, I guess. That'll do it for today's show. Leave your thoughts on anything we said, especially the Chris Livingston and Tyler Smith debate. But the Bucks defensive rating, where that needs to be, we're not going to escape any of the Giannis discourse. So I suppose leave your thoughts on that as well and your takeaways from Media Day. And we will parse through the reactions on our next show. For Frank and Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.